Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and RareGem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network.
We know that those who experience persistent, toxic stress or traumatic adverse events are less likely to achieve good health. Sometimes this stress is exacerbated by feelings of being out of control of one's circumstances. Today, we will explore how the health of our democracy gives us or takes away from us this sense of control that we need to heal and to become alive and well.
African Americans have only 5% of the average assets of a Caucasian. So even though the income gap is narrowed, although it's still a major gap, the wealth gap has not narrowed, and it's very substantial. And that's due in large part to this inability in previous generations in the 50s and 60s to own a house that increases in value. It also played out in the uneven access of African Americans to a variety of public services, be it public education, be it housing, be it health services, and the like. Place matters. Where you live determines, to a large extent, the bundle of public goods and services you have available to you.
We'll be right back. So, Dr. Jones, please, as your introduction, create a vision for us for what it means to you today for our democracy to be alive and well.
To be alive and well, we need equal opportunity, both in the political arena as well as in the economic and social sectors. And we don't have equal opportunity in any one of those by race in the St. Louis region. We've never had it.
What would it look like if we had it?
It would look like the distribution of African Americans and Caucasians and other ethnicities and races in terms of the levels of education, in terms of the economic success, in terms of health outcomes, in terms of access to the ballot and use of the ballot, all having the same distribution, everybody having an equal say, an equal influence, an equal shot at a good life.
Alive and Well STL.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and host of Alive and Well STL, sponsored by the St. Louis Regional Health Commission. Last week, we talked about the power of art and how through art we can walk a journey that leads us to mental wellness. We talked about how each of us has an artist inside, an artist ready to express hurt, pain, and hope. Art at its core is an expression, often of human emotion. Over the last few months, we have seen expressions of emotion throughout our community. Some of these expressions we recognize as art, and some we may characterize differently, perhaps as other types of expressions, including the freedom of speech and the right to assemble. Regardless of our opinion of some of the expressions of emotion we have witnessed, we can recognize them as activities of a democracy. Today, we're going to talk about our democracy and how our sense of empowerment in a democracy can impact our health, or how our perceived lack of empowerment may have a negative impact on our health. During the season of Alive and Well STL, we are discussing the impact that trauma has on our emotional and physical health. We know that those who experience persistent, toxic stress or traumatic adverse events are less likely to achieve good health. Sometimes this stress is exacerbated by feelings of being out of control of one's circumstances, are not ours to create or influence. Today, we will explore how the health of our democracy gives us or takes away from us this sense of control that we need to heal and to become alive and well. Today, we are joined in the studio by Dr. Terry Jones, Founders Professor for Political Science at University of Missouri, St. Louis. As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm excited to be speaking with you, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Terry, you've dedicated much of your career to studying St. Louis government and policies and politics, often shedding light on disparities that exist in our region. So, for our listeners, can you explain some of the most important policy decisions made in our region that have led to some of the more prevalent disparities we are witnessing today?
The first are two decisions, one made in the 19-teens, the other in the 1950s, that restricted African Americans to a few areas in the city of St. Louis and virtually denied them access to most of St. Louis County. In the 19-teens, the city of St. Louis, the citizens passed a petition enacting a zoning ordinance that was race-based, and even though it was declared unconstitutional a year later, the real estate industry in the city, with the enforcement of the state courts, developed a thing called a restrictive covenant, which essentially made the zoning ordinance still real, and the African Americans could only live in what was then known as Mill Creek Valley or the Ville neighborhood. In the 1950s, as suburbanization occurred, as over 400,000 people moved, we went from actually over 400,000 people in St. Louis County in 1950 to 1 million in 1970, 600,000 people in 2 decades. During most of that period, private developers and landlords were allowed to discriminate, not to rent or sell to African Americans. So the biggest period of wealth accumulation in American society, buying that suburban home in the 1950s and then having it accelerate in value in subsequent decades, was denied to African Americans.
And so how is that playing out in the St. Louis that we see today?
2 ways in which it plays out. First, in terms of simply assets, African Americans have only 5% of the average assets of a Caucasian. So even though the income gap is narrowed, although it's still a major gap, the wealth gap has not narrowed, and it's very substantial. And that's due in large part to this inability in previous generations in the 50s and 60s to own a house that increases in value. It also played out in the uneven access of African Americans to a variety of public services, be it public education, be it housing, be it health services, and the like. Place matters. Where you live determines to a large extent the bundle of public goods and services you have available to you.
Terry, speak a little bit more about other policies that perhaps are not top of mind that you see playing out today as impacting life choices and decisions for our community, like in public education or the other realms that you just mentioned.
Well, Missouri had legally mandated segregation of public schools starting in 1865 when schooling was available to African Americans. It was not available before the Civil War, and continued until the Brown v. Board of Education decision legally, and it continued, in fact, even for 2 decades after that. St. Louis has had a very uneven history in providing appropriate and full educational opportunity to African Americans, continues to have that history today, largely because of the way in which we structure our school systems, small districts that depend on property values in that district to pay a good part, if not sometimes most of the tab, for the education in those districts.
So you are speaking to systemic, structural, historical ways in which we have inherited some unhealthy situations and unhealthy dynamics routinized within our democracy. My next question for you is, in a democracy, we're given tools: right to assemble, right to vote, free press, freedom of speech, that allows us to raise awareness of these disparities and to participate in the changes that we need to see, particularly in the realm of changing policy and changing self. These tools are supposed to give us a sense of empowerment. I want your reaction. First, I want to ask you, are there any tools in that toolbox that I've missed that I've listed?
No, I think you have. That's a good list. It's the First Amendment list, the other freedom being the freedom of religion. But those are the ways in which we try to get government to be responsive to the needs of the people. So,
political scientists assess our health in terms of democracy. Where do we fall on engaging it? How healthy is our democracy or not?
Within the St. Louis region, I think it's fairly healthy, even though there's a lot of criticism of having small municipalities or having 28 wards in a city with just a little over 300,000 people. One of the things that enables is easy access to the individuals who are occupying elected positions. They're not far away. They're close. They live in your neighborhood. So I think we are fairly healthy in the potential to have great citizen involvement.
What other tools do you think, or maybe reactions or responses that you've seen that indicate to you that it's a healthy, might be uncomfortable, but healthy dialogue or discussion that helps us to advance our democracy?
I think the recent events, tragic as all they were in Ferguson, have shown that protest works, that you can get not simply the attention of people within the St. Louis region, but literally around the world, and that you can drive an agenda based on peaceful protest.
So what are your recommendations as to how an individual can utilize these tools to empower themselves and the community that they live in?
Get to know your elected officials. They are very approachable. If you want to be an elected official yourself, it's not that difficult to run for a local office, and it's not that expensive. You need friends, but you don't need a lot of money, and the friends can substitute for the money. And using both your voice and then possibly your presence as a candidate, you can make a huge difference.
So I want to play devil's advocate for those that are so disenfranchised and disappointed that they don't feel like these tools, the power to vote, really mean anything, or it's too difficult, or there's too many barriers. Can you speak to the person that perhaps does not understand fully why that is a gift that we have that we need to utilize more?
First of all, you can give story after story where if the people mobilize and they can get change at the ballot box. Secondly, though, we need to acknowledge that it's not easy to register to vote in Missouri or in many other states. You need to do it about a month before the election starts. You need to go somewhere typically to do it, although you can mail it in. We don't make it all that easy for people to vote. We need to do a better job of that, and many states are doing a better job, such as having same-day registration on Election Day. Missouri should emulate those states.
That's a good recommendation. Any other recommendations that you think about when we talk about an alive and well democracy?
It requires an educated citizenry who is involved in the issues, who is following the issues, who is maintaining a liaison with the elected officials. All of that's work. We need to take our citizenship role seriously. And if you're struggling to make a living, that's very difficult to accomplish.
So, Terry, I know you in context of your work with Deaconess Foundation, your passion of thinking about the next generation. I'll either put this negatively or positively and see what works for you. What are you most disappointed by in all of the work that you've done that we still haven't made it there yet? Or what's the vision of what needs to happen between this generation and the next few coming in order to realize the vision for our children who will be adults pretty soon, inheriting all of this?
The realization that what happens within local government and state government matters as much, if not more, for our everyday lives than what happens in national or international levels, even though the media attention is typically on the latter, not the former.
I keep seeing signs up of protests that say, Black Lives Matter. Why, for an audience who's listening who is not African American, why does it matter? Why should I care about these issues that seem distant from me because I'm in a separate municipality very far away? How does that impact me?
No person is an island. We are all in this together. I'm quoting, obviously, from a very famous poem, or paraphrasing it from it. So there's the justice rationale. And it's part of being a human to be just. If that doesn't do it for you, it's in our interest to all of us to have everybody succeed, because we all succeed more if everybody is doing well.
So what's your reaction to this? How do you think the state of our democracy in St. Louis impacts our health as individuals and as a community?
First of all, the system is going to be responsive to those who give voice. So health is, as you are very aware, affected by policies at all levels of government, but also the state and local government especially. And the ability, for example, to expand Medicaid is only going to happen if the forces that want that to happen have the elected officials at the state level who will make it happen.
Your thoughts about the history of St. Louis is very important context. The first time I know that I heard that information, it really put a different lens on this issue for me. So knowledge is very important. Are there resources, places that we can go to learn more about history that would help to inform us now as we move forward? We don't want to repeat the same mistakes.
If in terms of the residential segregation and the history of that and how that's played out in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, there's a marvelous book by Colin Gordon. First name Colin, last name Gordon. The title of the book is Mapping Decline, and it's a wonderful both visual and written explanation and analysis of that. For the history of race and public education in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, I would recommend Susan Uchitel and Gerald Haney's The Unending Struggle.
And although we like to think of these separately, education, economic status, race, class, health all live together. They really do. They all impact the individual. So as we close, please share with us, what is your hope for St. Louis, and how do we get to alive and well?
We get to alive and well by first acknowledging that we have a racial history that is systemically discriminated against African Americans. We understand that history. We believe what William Faulkner wrote, the past is not dead, it's not even past. And then we start to work on the impact that those decisions have right now and eradicate their effects. And that requires a good deal of affirmative action. It requires policies that are color conscious, not colorblind.
As we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to say to our listeners?
When you look at all of the issues confronting the St. Louis area, you'll find a racial dimension in every one. And unless we deal with the racial dimension of that issue as well as the other aspects of it, we're not going to accomplish racial justice or justice writ large in the St. Louis area.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Alive and Well. For more information about today's program and to become involved in Alive and Well STL, download the smartphone application Bonfire, Bonfyre, and search for Alive and Well or visit us online at aliveandwellstl.com. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
You are invited to join the conversation. If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved. Visit aliveandwellstl.com to learn more.
Alive and Well STL, the Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr., committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade and 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at STLRHC.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.